Hi, in this tutorial we'll discuss about SAP PI. SAP PI is a process integration tool from SAP. So the process integration is basically a platform to provide a single point of integration for all the systems without touching the complex legacy systems. So this is a very powerful middleware by SAP which will provide a seamless end-to-end integration between the SAP systems as well as the non-SAP systems. Now in SAP PI we can have the synchronous as well as the asynchronous message exchange, and it will include the built-in engine for designing and executing the integration processes. So in this slide we can see that we have a SAP CRM, SAP SRM, SAP FICO and other legacy systems in an environment. Now how these systems will communicate with each other. So SAP PI will help us to provide the messages interface, messages exchange between all these systems, that is the SAP as well as the non-SAP systems. Now SAP PI system can be classified into several areas. The first one is the integration server. So the integration server is the central processing engine of my SAP PI. All the processes, all the messages which we exchange between different systems are processed in the integration server. It can be further divided into the three separate engines, that is the integration engine, adapter engine and the business process engine. Now the second thing is the integration builder. It is a client server framework for accessing and editing the integration objects. It consists of two related tools, that is the ESR and the integration directory. So as a SAP PI developer, these two tools are very much important for us. Now ESR is the enterprise service repository wherein we will be designing and developing our objects to be used in the scenarios, and integration directory is used to configure the ESR objects. So we will be actually developing our communication channels and scenarios in integration directory. Then the third system is the system landscape. So it is a central repository of information about the software and the systems in the data center, and it will help to simplify the administration of your landscape. Now the fourth one is the configuration and the monitoring tool. So my configuration and monitoring tool will help me monitor the messages and the adapters in SAP PI system. Now I'll just show you how my SAP PI system will look like. So when we log into our SAP PI page, so this is the home page for SAP PI. We are using the 7.31 version of SAP PI in this tutorial. We have four main components, that is the ESR, system landscape, integration directory and configuration and monitoring on this home page. We can traverse to any of these using this. So system landscape is the first step wherein my basis team will create the components and their versions. Once they have created the components and the versions, then we have to go to the ESR. So in this tutorial we will be covering a file to file scenario. So when we say a file to file scenario in SAP PI, what does that mean? So my file to file scenario is that I am reading a XML file from any FTP server, and after that I am transforming that data in SAP PI and then loading the data back to the target system, which is again a file in this scenario. So I will be showing you like how we can create a file to file scenario in SAP PI. So first of all, once the component and the versions are created in system landscape, then we have to go to this enterprise service builder. So we have to click on this link, enterprise service builder, under enterprise repository. Once you will click on it, this home page will appear for enterprise service builder. So this is the place wherein I will be designing the objects which are required for my mapping and my scenarios. So the first step is that I have to know the name of the component and the version under which I will be creating my objects. So in this scenario I will be using the component which is TBIT40 base component 33. So what I need to do is I have to expand this, and under that I can find a software component version. So I will just select that, right click and click on new. So first of all, whenever we are creating the objects in SAP PI for a scenario, so the first object which we need to create under a component is a namespace. So it is taking us time. Yeah. So once this screen is open, then under this create object we have all those objects which I can create in ESR. So the first one which we need to create is a namespace. So I will give any namespace to it. So we have to give like a URL here. So I am giving http sapdemo2.com. Then click on this create. Now I can see that my the namespace which I have created, that is the http sapdemo2.com. I can see that inside this component. So once I have done done this, I have to save it and activate it. So from this save button, I will be saving this namespace, and then I will go to the namespace definition and click on this activate. Then we are activating the namespace which we have just created. So once our namespace is created, so the second step is that we have to create a data type. So again I will right click here, I'll go to new, and I have to select under the interface objects we have the data type. So data type we basically use to define the structure of our file. Like say in my file I am getting a employee data, and under my employee I have name, ID, address. So all the fields which are there in my file, the input file, I have to specify here. Then I have to give the name of this data type. So generally we give it like dt underscore the file name. So say I am giving dt underscore file to file demo2. So it will automatically select the software component version, and then the namespace we have to specify. So I'll just select the namespace which we have created. Once we have created this information, we need to click on create. So now we are in the data type screen. So herein I have to add the elements and the sub elements which are part of my input file. So what I will do, I'll click on this plus sign and I'll go to insert sub element. Then we have to give the name of this element. So say it is an employee. So once we have selected this, then we have to create the elements inside it. I'll select that and create insert sub element. So when we are creating a parent node, in that case we have to select insert element, and if we are trying to create a child, then we have to select this sub element. So now in my file I am getting the employee ID and employee name inside my node employee. So I will be creating a sub element. Then we have to specify the name of this node, then the type of it. So we have to go to the XSD types and say I am selecting XSD string. Then we have the occurrences. So occurrence means that how many times this element will appear in my file. So my employee can appear n number of times in my file. So in my minimum occurrence I will put it as 1, and in my maximum occurrence I will put it as unbounded. Now inside my element employee I can have the sub element ID, but my sub element ID can appear only once in my single employee. So I'll keep it the occurrences as 1. Similar way we have to insert one more sub element. Say it is name, that is the employee name, and then we have to again specify the type. So once we have specified this information, after that we have to click on this save and then activate this data type. Go to the data type and we will activate it. Now the third step is to create the message type. So once the data type is created, the next step is to create the message type. So how we need to create the message type? We have to again right click, click on new, and then under the interface objects we have the message type. So we need to give the name of the message type, so it can be like empty underscore file to file, and then we have to give the name. Now it has automatically taken the namespace and the software component version, but if it doesn't take it automatically, then we can select it using this option. So once you will click on here, you will be able to get all the component versions which are available in this system. So you need to select it, the one which you want to use. Then click on create. Now we have created this message type. We have to specify which data type I will be using under this message type. So I will be just dragging this data type which we have just created here. Now it has specified that I will be using this data type dt underscore file to file demo 2 for this message type. Then we have to save it and activate it. So once my message type is activated, the next step is to create the service interfaces. So we need to there can be the two conditions. So if the structure of my input file and the output file is same, so I can create only one data type and one message type both for my inbound and outbound. But if the structure of my file is different, then we have to create two data types, one for inbound and one for outbound. Similarly, two message types, one for inbound and another one for outbound. In this scenario, we have taken the same file structure, so that's why we have created only one data type and only one message type. Once it is done, after that we have to create the new service interface. So service interfaces we have to create two, one for the inbound and another one for the outbound. So again right click on this namespace, go to new, and under the interface objects we have the service interface. Then we have to give this service interface name. So say if I give it as service interface underscore inbound and file to file. Okay, so it is my inbound file to file demo 2. Similarly, we have the namespace and the software component version available here. Then click on create. In this we have to specify the category and the mode. So my category can be the inbound or the outbound. So when we are creating the inbound service interface, we have to select the category as inbound. Okay, after that we have this mode. So my mode can be asynchronous or synchronous. So when we say asynchronous, it means that I'm sending the request and I am waiting for the response. So we have to configure both request as well as response for the synchronous. And for my asynchronous, I will be only sending the request, but I will not be waiting for the response. So I have selected this mode asynchronous in this scenario. Now we have to specify the message type. Then we have created the message type here, and we need to drag it in the request message type. Once we have specified the category, mode and the message type, we have to save this and activate it. Then service interface and activate. Similarly, we have to create another service interface which is for the outbound. So again we need to right click, or we can directly go from the objects, that is object new, and in the interfaces we have the service interface SI underscore. So we are creating it for the outbound, so that's why we have to give the name like SI out underscore demo and demo 2. Then click on create. Now we have to specify the category as outbound, mode as asynchronous, and since we are using the same message type for both inbound and outbound, so I am dragging the same message type into my request message. Then we have to save it and activate it. So once we have activated our service interfaces, now the next step is to create the message mapping. So this is the mapping wherein I will be actually mapping my inbound data with my outbound. So again, go to the objects and click on new. Then we under the mapping objects we have the message mapping. So we'll click on the message mapping. We have to give us a name. So generally we give it as mm_, then any name. Then click on create. So now in this I have to specify like what is my source message and what is my target message, and after that we have to map the objects. So basically we have the same message type for the source and for the target. So we will drag the same message type into the source as well as the target system. Now we have to map them. So we have various transformations available in PI. So depending on our requirement, we can use any of these. Like for the text we have the substring, we have concatenate, similarly we have the indexing. So all these are available. If we go to this drop down, we have for the arithmetic we have different transformation, that is addition, subtraction. Similarly we have for statistics, conversions, date, node functions. So as per our requirement we have to use it. Like say if I am getting the data first name and the last name from my inbound file, and I want to concatenate these names into a single name in my outbound file. So what I will do, I will get the first name, last name, and I will use the concatenate function and send it to my outbound. But in our case we are just doing a file to file mapping. So what we can do is we can just select the both nodes and then we can click on this option which is there, that is map the selected fields and the substructures. So if my file structure is same in both of them, so we can use this shortcut to map all the objects at once. But if my file structure is different, then we have to drag them one by one. So what we will do, we will click on this match the structure and click on apply. So we have this employee to employee mapping available now, and I can see that my all icons are in green. So it means my mapping is correct. So once we have created this mapping, now we have to save this mapping and we have to activate it. So go to the message mapping and activate. So once my message mapping is activated, so the last step which I need to do in this ESR is that I have to create my operation mapping now. So I will go to the new and I'll select the operation mapping object from my interface objects. From my mapping objects. So I will click on this operation mapping. I will give it a name. Say operation mapping file to file underscore demo underscore 2. Then I have to click on this create. Now what we have to do is we have to specify the source operation and the target operation in my operation mapping. So basically we need to like drag the service interfaces which we have created and the message mapping which we have created. So for my inbound interface I have to select the target operation. So I will be just dragging this service interface in, that is the inbound, into my in target, and my outbound service interface into my source operation. Then we have to drag the message mapping which we have just created into the mapping program. So this way we have specified that in my source operation I have to use this outbound interface, and in my target operation I have to use this inbound interface. Then in the message, my message mapping will be this one which I will be using in my mapping program. So once we have selected all these things, then we have to click on this save, and then we have to activate this operation mapping. Now we are done with all the objects which we need to create in the ESR. Then we have to go to the integration builder. Now how I need to log into my integration builder is that I, on the home page under this integration directory, I have the integration builder. So once I will click on this integration builder, I will be getting this open. So this is my home page for my integration builder. Now there are two views of this objects. So if we go to this drop down, so either we can have the object view, that is I will be getting all the objects under the each category, or we can go to this configuration scenario view, in which I will be having all the scenarios which are there, and then if I open any of these, I will be getting all the components inside it. So now what we need to do in the integration builder is we need to configure our scenario. So first of all, what we need to create is the configuration scenario. So if I'll go to the object and click on this new, then we have the option of this configuration scenario. We have to give the name to this configuration scenario, that is CS underscore file to file, say demo2. Then click on create. So now my configuration scenario is created. I need to save it and I need to activate it. So once activated, I can see this scenario which I have created under the all objects. So I need to now create a communication channel inside this configuration scenario. So I will right click my configuration scenario and I'll click on new. Then we have to create a communication channel. So first of all, we have to select the communication component in this. So basically we have to create two channels, one for the sender and one for the receiver. So then we have to first select the communication component. So if I am creating a communication channel for my sender, so I have to select the communication component for the sender and then the communication channel name. So first of all, we will select the communication sender. So I'll be clicking on here and I have to select the communication component for my sender. So in this scenario, I will be using this ABS sender. Then we have to give the name to this communication channel. So say I am giving this CC underscore sender. And file to file demo2. Then we have to click on this create. So once we have created this, then we have to specify the certain parameters inside this communication channel. So the first one is that what will be my adapter type. So my adapter type depends on my scenario. So in this case, I am using the file to file scenario. So my adapter type has to be file. So it can be a HTTPS or anything else which we have in the system. So depending on our scenario, we have to select the adapter type. So once you will click on this, you will be able to see all the adapter types in your system. So I will be selecting a file since I am going for a file to file scenario. Then in this we have to select whether it is a sender or it is a receiver. So since this is a sender, so we have selected sender here. And after that we have to specify the source directory and the name of the file. So this is the directory wherein I will be reading my inbound file and what is the name of that file. I have created a folder here in my system, so I'll be directly going in here. So we have this demo folder. In this demo folder, I have this created the send folder and the receive folder. So in my sender, this is my path of my directory from where I have to read my inbound file. So I'll be placing this path here in my source directory and then the name of my file. So say it is abc.xml. So once done, we have to click on the save and the activate. So now we have created the communication channel for the sender. Similarly, we have to create the communication channel for receiver. Now again I have to create one more communication channel, that is for the receiver. So I have to select the communication component which is for my receiver. So I already have the component in my system, that is the ABS receiver. Then we have to give the name to this communication channel, that is cc underscore say receive file demo 2. Then click on create. Now again we have to specify the adapter type. So since my outbound is also having the adapter type as file, so since it is a file, I have to select the adapter type as file. But this is a receiver, so I will be selecting this receiver. And then we have to specify the target directory and the target file name. So for my target directory, I have this directory created in my system. So I'll be using the same directory here, the path. And then I have to specify the target file name. So say it is xyz.xml. So now I have mentioned all the things which I need for my receiver communication channel. Then I have to save it and I have to activate it. Now once we are done with the communication channel, both the receiver and the sender, so the last step what we need to do is that we have to create a configuration, integrated configuration. So click on new and then we have this integrated configuration here. So in this we have to select all the things, that is what is my interface, what is my communication component. So all these things I will be mentioning in my integrated configuration. So we have to select the communication component as sender. So since I am using the ABS sender, I will be selecting the ABS sender here. Then we have to take the interface name and the namespace name. So what is my interface name? So it is the outbound interface which we have created in the ESR. So I will be just copying in my interface name and the namespace from my ESR. So I already have the interface name and the namespace copied here. I will be taking it from this file, or otherwise we can directly copy it from the ESR. So this is my outbound interface which I have created. Then the namespace which we have created in the ESR. So once we have provided all this information, then we have to click on this create. Now we have to configure all these things, that is the inbound processing, receiver interfaces and outbound processing. So in my inbound processing, I have to specify like what will be my communication channel and what will be my adapter type, adapter engine. So basically when I will select my communication channel, it will automatically pick up all these files. So my communication channel in this case is my demo 2 file which we have created, that is the ABS sender. We'll click on apply. Now it has automatically taken the adapter type and the adapter engine and every information which it is required. Then we have to go to the receiver. In the receiver we have to specify what is my communication component for my receiver. So my communication component is ABS receiver. We will specify it here. Now once done, we have to go to this third tab, that is the receiver interfaces. In my receiver interfaces, I have to select my operation mapping. Like what is my operation mapping? So if I click on here, I have my operation mapping already there and I need to click on apply. So it has automatically populated the data. Now once we are done with it, then we have to go to this outbound processing. In my outbound processing, I will have like the data called that is the communication channel. So I will be selecting my communication channel in my outbound processing. So my communication channel is ABS receiver, this one. So we click on apply and it has taken the information what is required. So once we are done with all these steps in the integrated configuration, we have to save this and then we have to activate it. Now we have configured everything in the ESR as well as the integration builder. Now it's the time to test that data, like whether my data is coming fine or not. So we have to create one sample file with the data and we have to place it in the inbound folder. Sorry, the outbound folder, that is the sender folder. Then we will automatically, SAP PI will automatically run the transformations which we have created, the mappings which we have created, and it will transform the file and place it in the receiver folder. So how we need to do is it that we can go to the ESR, then we can open up this message mapping. From this message mapping, I can get the sample XML. So if I'll go to this test and if I go to this sample, so once I will click on it, I will be able to see the sample XML, but there is no data inside it. So I need to put the file with the data inside it. Now we have copied this sample XML and we have placed some data. So I have already created a sample file for it, that is the abc.xml. So in this abc.xml, I have copied the XML from this test and I have placed certain data, that is the address, name and the ID. So I will be placing this file in the send folder of my source directory. Now in my source directory, that is the send directory, I have this abc.xml. Now when I will go to my receiver directory, so I should be getting a file with the name XYZ in my receiver. So let me check whether I'm getting that file or not. So if I go to my receiver folder, so can you see that we have this XYZ file available here. Now if I will open up this XML file, so we have the data inside it, right? So the same employee and the ID which we have just entered, so that employee and ID file is available with the name XYZ in my target folder. So this is how you need to transform your file from the source directory to the target directory. Now how I can see that whether my communication channel was working fine or not. So I will go here. If I click on this configuration and monitoring, so if I go to this configuration and monitoring tool, then under the adapter engine we have this communication channel monitor. So I can place in the name of my communication channels which we have created and we can see whether my communication channel is working fine or not. So if I go to my configuration integration and if I open up the scenarios, so my communication channel name is this. I'll open up and I'll copy this communication channel and will place it in my configuration and monitoring. So I can see that it is in green and it is running fine. So if we have any error or anything in my communication channel, I will be able to see all those errors in my monitoring home page. Similarly, we can find out for the receivers and the sender channel. So this is how we can create a mapping, a file-to-file scenario in SAP PI. So basically, first of all, we have to create the components, the objects in ESR. Then we have to build the scenario in integration builder, then we have to test that scenario, and while testing we can use the monitoring tool to monitor this communication channels. So this is how we can use the PI to create a file to file scenario. Thank you.